Kia ora team. I thought I'd do a flip class just on the exercise physiology of methods of training, and just to get us up to speed with all the methods that we've covered so far. So the training methods, we're not focusing on six. I've shortened it down to just three that you can focus in terms of strategies to help with your performance and to write about for your journals. So they were circuit training, continuous training, and interval training. Right, and I think we've pretty much gone over circuit training and continuous training, but I want to go a bit more in depth in interval training because it seems like a lot of you are kind of working on interval training and you're finding the benefits for it. So yeah, we'll go over a little bit of it now. So circuit training again is based upon the completion of a series of exercises, and I think we've pretty much been through this PowerPoint, so we'll quickly skim through it. And a lot of you have experienced this when we did the rope session, the squats, etc. Basically, it can be used to develop any components of fitness. And if you're not too sure, if you can't remember what those components of fitnesses are, it's all to do with endurance, speed, strength, flexibility. It can have running components. It can have strength components and muscular endurance components. All those types of things. Right? A circuit program usually contains about 6 to 10 stations, and you can rotate on a time. It also is designed to train both aerobic and anaerobic fitness, or specifically exercise muscle groups or components of fitnesses. So some of you have used it, and if you think about it, like you guys would use it quite intensely, and it's got to do with your heart rate. So you could write about that kind of stuff in your journal. Good circuits will have activities that are specific to the needs of the performer. So if you are thinking about goal setting, it's like what kind of things are you doing that are specific or have that principle of training, that specificity? What kind of exercises are specific to the event or to what kind of training you want to do? All right. Exercises, there's a huge list, and I know some of you have gone over them already. And experienced some already, and some of you've done explode, some of you done chariots with the ropes. I think some of you've even made your own up with the power bags, which is awesome. So those are the types of things that you need to try and put into your training. Talk about it in your journal, like what's positive about it, what's the negatives, and we'll quickly go over some now. So advantages and disadvantages. So for circuit training, the advantages are it's less boring due to all the exercises being different. Pretty self-explanatory, like if you keep continuing to do the same exercises, it can get dull, right? It is easily adaptable and can be set up in both indoors and outdoors, right? It is physically beneficial because you're improving your anaerobic and aerobic fitness, so it can be changed around for both, right? The disadvantages are it can be very time consuming to set up and organize. So as some of you remember, when we did a few of those circuit training types, I was telling you guys to just take into consideration like how long it took us to set up. It is quite annoying, and then how long to pack away. It takes about an extra 15 minutes really, right? And people can get in each other's way if the circuit is busy and performed in a small area, right? Things you need to consider when designing your training for circuit. Identify whether you want the circuit to be general or specific, like if you're trying to target a specific muscle group or a component of fitness, like aerobic endurance, those types of things. Especially plan your circuits carefully. Be careful not to place stations that are predominantly aerobic and one after another. So I remember when we're doing our circuit training, when we're setting up, I was trying to space out different exercises where it wasn't completely squats dominant or legs dominant, because if you keep doing it, you would obviously fatigue. So I was trying to mix those things up, so you had a little bit of shoulders, a little bit of arm workout, and then you'd move over straight away to the legs workout, which kind of makes sense. Right, continuous training. Key things to remember. So some of you have been doing continuous training, like running around, doing the school run. I think some of you have been using the bikes, right? So it is training without stopping for a rest, yeah? Continuous. Basically, the performer maintains the same speed and intensity throughout, yeah, and it should be at least 20 minutes. Obviously, which energy system does this develop? And we're trying to target the aerobic energy system, right? Keyword there is that aerobic, air, trying to use that oxygen system trying to get the body adapted, trying to make it more efficient in terms of taking in oxygen to get all that, to get that transition of cleaning out the fatigue, the lactic acid out of the muscles, all those types of things. Right, so common examples of continuous training is obviously swimming, dancing, running, cycling, all those types of things. Right, the next one is advantages and disadvantages. So the obvious advantages is it keeps you fit and healthy. It's a good method to improve aerobic and all-round fitness. Right, and the other advantage that's not on there, it's simple. Yeah, it's pretty simple and it's easy. Like a lot of people do continuous training, when they leave school and in their own time. It's all a matter of just chucking on shoes and going for a run or doing types of things. It's just more simplistic. Yeah. Disadvantages, obviously, if the activity is not high enough to raise your heart rate, for the performer, then the method is ineffective. So you think about when we had our heart rate monitors on, if you were training and you're sort of cruising, and if you didn't have your heart rate monitors on and you were only working at a range of like 100 beats to 110, just cruising, you actually don't get any benefits, and the kind of method becomes ineffective. So then you have to try and tap into other types of training, maybe interval, to really push that heart rate to get you into those zones that we were talking about. Other disadvantages, if the activity is too hard too soon, then the performer is most likely to exhaust himself and be put off by the activity due to the large amount of oxygen. I remember the times when we had pre-season for like rugby, etc., and a lot of you will relate to this. When you get straight into your season, or when you get straight into your off season, some of the first things you do is just go straight for a run and just blow yourself straight out. And it's daunting, but it also can put you off training for the rest of the time, if it's too hard. So those types of things are also disadvantages. I know a lot of sports teams now, when they do when they try and plan their pre-seasons, they try and do interval stuff, so it has a bit of variety, I guess, rather than just turning up to training. Okay, boys or girls, let's just go for a run, etc. It becomes a bit stale. All right, interval training. Right, what is it? Now this is probably the key method of training that some of you are doing, and we haven't really gone over it, and it's good to go over it now because I need you guys to write about what the benefits are and maybe challenge what the disadvantages are, etc. Because I was talking to a few of you at one of the practicals, and I was talking to like what the benefits for interval training, and I feel like some of us still aren't well equipped with knowledge to write about interval training. Right, so interval training involves times of work followed by times of slower work or rest. Yeah, it is an exercise strategy that is intended to improve performance with short training sessions. Yet the term can refer to any cardiovascular workout. How do we do interval training? Now, some of you have already experienced this over some of the training sessions. You're probably going to experience more. All right, you work at high intensity to push your heart rate towards to that zone, that heart rate zone, for a short period with an interval of partial recovery before working again. So how we were doing that beep test today, we were trying to work as hard as we can, trying to get our heart rate into a zone, and then we have our rest. Yeah, partial recovery, and we try and rest so it, we can actually get into another state where we can push ourselves again. Right? It's good for fat burning, cardiovascular activities. It can also, we can train between that 60 to 80 maximum heart rate zone, right? And the rest intervals should be long enough to allow your heart rate to drop in that 40 to 60% maximum heart rate zone. So we're thinking again from maybe for some of you, from 140, 160 beats per minute. And then we really want to drop right back to like 80 to 120, 80 to 100 beats per minute. Examples of sports where interval training might be useful, and it's definitely useful for the tough guy, tough girl challenge, right? But other places are cycling, and some of you have been doing this in your training, which is really good. Going off and on, etc., like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and trying to find that heart rate. Now, when you go to gyms, you'll find that they have those metal grips that you can hold onto, and that's to test what kind of heart rate you're working in, so they're really good for that. Other ways is typically just your running or your sprinting. It's probably the most simple, the simplistic way, and rowing as well. I wish we still had rowers at school, because rowing is one of the best high intensity interval trainings you can do, and it's kind of like that off and on, really get your heart rate through the roof, and then rest again. Right. Other examples that the sprint walk method, and we've done different varieties of it. So really just sprinting and stopping, or sprinting and walking, etc. So the idea is to walk back to a starting point, known as your recovery period, and then sprint again. And you do this for a certain amount of times. Applying this, like applying interval training to principles of training. All right, stay with me here. Individual needs, so there's individuality, and we're looking at set distance for events, size of the bike, etc. Specificity, making sure that sorry about this. This is the use of the treadmill for runners, rowing machine for rowers, stroke variety, and so on. So specificity is making that specific to the event that we're going to. Progressive overload, so definitely making sure that we're increasing the intensity, increasing the gears, or increasing our training, especially for FIT. Now, FIT is that overload acronym, so frequency, intensity, type, and time. So if train more often during the week, that intensity, faster shuttles or faster beeps, how we increased that level of beep test. T, like manipulate the time, like maybe you want to make it longer, maybe you want to make it shorter but more intensity. And the type, like changing up the activity, like changing up the shuttles, so we can do different things, changing up that variety to give it more, so it's not stale. Yeah, and that rest and recovery is also a really good principle of training, and that relates to having those recoveries between your trainings. Right, the effects of interval training. The heart rate is strengthened, more capillaries are formed, and also more oxygen can be taken up, which helps break down lactic acid in your muscles. So we're talking about we're getting that hypertrophy of the heart, which means your heart can be stronger. You can pump more blood per beat, and we're talking about that stroke volume. The bigger it is, the stronger the stroke will be. The stronger the stroke, the more blood per beat, the more blood going around the body, the more oxygen you can get around to those working muscles. The advantages are great for short, intense workouts. It's time efficient, should be working at about 45, even half an hour, 45 minutes, but it's just quick, sharp, workouts. When performed correctly, proven to increase metabolic rate post-exercise. So after your exercise or after an interval exercise, it's proven to burn calories a lot quicker, right, and burn fat and gain muscle. And we're talking today, when you do too much cardiovascular endurance, this one here, you can burn fat, yes, but then you can also burn muscle. But in terms of interval training, you're burning fat and gaining muscle, right? Enhanced power and speed, right? But there are the disadvantages again, right? High bouts of exercise can increase your chances of injuries. So you got to think high intensity, it's really quick, sharp movements, high intensity. And if you're not warmed up correctly, it can increase your chances of injury, right? Because of the great benefits, and there are so many, this type of training can be overused, right? And athletes can overtrain, right? Do it too often during the week, right? And no more than 4 high intensity interval trainings a week. And just to kind of reiterate it, beginners should not just jump straight into this type of training without building foundations. And this relates to CrossFit. And I put this in here because it's a big risk, and you guys will probably see it at the moment when you watch events, how they've got all those K-tape all over them. Like, a lot of people do just jump straight into CrossFit, and CrossFit is a really high intensity kind of sport, and this is one of the reasons that a lot of people do tend to get injuries when they just get straight into CrossFit. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this full class. Make sure you have a question ready for me for when you watch this, and we'll talk about it the next day. Kia ora.